We're back and welcome to Bruins Diehards, your source for everything Boston Bruins. And I have a special guest for you. Well, as usually when I do these podcasts, it's always a special guest because, I don't normally do the podcast thing, but I've got Dominic Tiano here. And I would have to say, and he's probably going to disagree with me, but that's fine, the number one source for all things Boston Bruins with regards to prospects. There are many people out there that I know personally that, they put out their reports, but when Dom puts it out, 9 times out of 10, there's a reason, there's a hashtag, Dom's always right. We're going to talk about Bruins prospects. You've been asking for it. You've been asking for it. But I'd like to welcome to the show, Dominic Tiano.
Thanks, Court. Great to be here. Here we were just talking some hockey, you and I, texting back and forth, and it was like, hey, we should record this as a podcast. So here we are. Grandkids are homesick, so I've got time on my hands.
Well, I appreciate your time. It is early in the morning on a Sunday, but this will be dropping on a Monday. So just be understandable. And as always, thank you so much for all of you that have come to the channel, checked it out, drop in the comments. Really love the conversations. Love all the conversations in the Discord as well. So if you can click like and subscribe, links to everything that we do are always in the comments. And we're going to talk about one of Dominic's articles later on in the show that will be linked in. So today, topics for the show. We're going to recap last night's game against the New Jersey Devils. We are going to talk the goaltending in Boston because it's always a hot topic. Plus, Dom Dish did a great article about it, just talking about our backup situation and something that it's kind of like bothered me since the trade happened, but we'll do a deep dive into it. And then Dom is going to give his prospect profile on the Boston Bruins. I've asked for his top 5, and I've also asked for who's regressed. We're going to go over a team grade, what the Boston Bruins future looks like with the amount of picks that we have coming up, all of that doing Boston Bruins. And then we're going to end the show on something fun. Maybe you might not find it fun. I think Morgan Geekie has been playing phenomenal, but we're going to try and answer the question, do we think Morgan Geekie is going to play for Team Canada at the Olympics? Because the Olympics are a hot topic right now around the NHL. We talked about it the last time on the pod about how their rink has kind of gotten a little bit smaller. Mind you, I found out just listening to Elliot Friedman on the radio the other day, the last time that they had a series where the NHL just went to Europe, I think it was the Buffalo Sabres. I can't remember. Am I wrong? Who just went to Europe? Nashville and Buffalo?
Um,
Nashville and somebody. Yeah,
yeah,
Nashville and Buffalo. Darlene
yeah,
versus Forsberg.
yeah.
They played on the same size rink that they're going to have for the NHL. And so what the NHL asked up in Sweden to do is what they've done is they've actually made the neutral zone smaller and didn't touch either the offensive zone or the defensive zone. So all they did was take away that 4 feet in the neutral zone. So actually it makes it more for tighter checking. And actually the way the Boston Bruins run their system, the smaller ice would actually work for Marco
Yeah.
Sturm. Because the Boston Bruins, as of last night, we just watched them play the New Jersey Devils, and they suffocated that neutral zone. The Bruins were outshot. The final shots of the game, I believe, were I can't. I don't even have it. Doesn't matter. Oh no, I have it here. Final shots of the game. New Jersey outshot the Bruins 30-21. But that doesn't really tell the whole story of the hockey game we watched last night because the Boston Bruins, again, after putting out a stinker the game before, huge stinker. Regardless, the two nights before was Swayman in the net. Corpusalo came back and they played great. Swayman comes back last night, great. But the Bruins have been doing this. You're going to have a stinker every now and then. And also, as Dom's mentioned before, and I've mentioned before, they can't sustain having their PK and their goaltending save them every game. And again, this is how they won the hockey game last night. They were outshot 30-21, mind you. The defense played a very good structured system last night, keeping New Jersey to the outside. They were limiting their high danger chances last night, and New Jersey was taking a lot of shots from the perimeter, which for a goaltender helps your job. The goaltender's job, and I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face, is to stop the first shot. If they stop the rebound, good on them. But their job is to stop the first shot. Dom, what are your thoughts on the game last night against the New Jersey Devils?
Well, I agree with you in keeping them to the perimeter, but for the most part, they've done that. But they've given up the second most high danger chances in the league so
Yeah,
far through 30
Swayman
games.
stopped the most in the league, high danger chances than any
Yeah.
other goalie.
So I mean that is unsustainable. Uh, One thing I do know is, and earlier in the season, or when they were going through that 6-game losing streak, my big argument was that they're not getting any practice time and they're not getting to work on the system in the way Stern wants them to play. There are times when they play the system to a T. Uh, you see how they can suffocate the opponents. It's not there yet. It's not perfect, and the fact that they're now on their 10th defenseman doesn't help.
And they
I
just lost
know,
one in Providence last night too.
yeah, and I know watching the London Knights for all these years, especially the last 3, maybe 4 years, is almost an identical system to what Marco Stern wants to implement with the Bruins. And we all know how dominant a team the London Knights are, or have been for the last few years. So I know the system works. I have belief in the system. The Bruins just aren't executing it to the level that they should be executing it right now. Will it get there by the end of the season? They got to start getting some bodies back, man. But when it works, it works.
Yeah, I was watching the game last night, and one of the things that actually stood out to me, besides like we'll get into the goals and how they were scored, and it was great to see that third line pop in a goal. They worked so hard out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Fraser Minton deserves every goal he gets. And I do believe if Fraser Minton played up higher in the lineup, we would actually see a higher offensive production. But as he said in between the periods, as they were talking to him, he's like, it's great to get a goal, but that wasn't our job. Like he
Yeah.
understands what his job is and what his role is. And as much as the fan base would be like, hey, I want Fraser Minton to get a ton of goals, he knows that his job is to prevent goals, not to get goals. His job is to suffocate. And I would say that the third line has played better than anybody else. But one thing I noticed last night, and he got third star for it, is Nikita Zadorov. He jumped into the play a lot and he activated himself and he used his speed. And I don't know if everybody knows this. He's one of the fastest skaters in the NHL. According to NHL
He is.
Edge, he
Yeah.
is a top 10 fastest skater in the NHL, which is honestly, I've seen him skate. I thought last year Zadorov was ineffective in a lot of ways. I think he cost his team a ton of penalties. I even thought his cross-checking penalty he got last night was more of he got a penalty because he's Nikita Zadorov more than he got a
Or
penalty.
because
Sorry?
he's so strong.
Yes, because I thought that was a routine play along the boards there. I didn't think it was as bad, but a lot of defensemen just do that shove when they're along the boards and the guy doesn't move. But when Nikita Zadorov does the shove, the guy goes flying through the boards.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but there was a play where Zadorov took the pass right off the face-off. He came coming down the wing, came in and cut in towards the net. I actually showed my daughter this morning. We were going through the highlights, and she plays defense in her league. And she's always like, well, when should I know when to skate for it? And I said, he noticed New Jersey shifted all their players pretty much to the right because they thought Zadorov was going to make the pass right away. They thought Zadorov was going to be putting the puck along the right-hand side. Didn't happen. Zadorov saw what New Jersey did and how they collapsed to the right, and he cut. He used all his speed, his burst right from the blue line, cut in and cut to the net. Not only that, he picked up the rebound and skated around the perimeter again and tried to get a shot on net. I thought it was simplifying what he'd done in the game. I get that, but at the same time, I thought it was something that the Bruins need to work on more. I don't think
Yeah.
under Marco Sturm's system that they activate the defense as much as they should.
They
Mind
don't.
you, they've had a ton of injuries on the back end, so it's hard to work on that in practice when you're pretty much using misfit toys on that back end because the Boston Bruins' biggest need, as much as everybody keeps talking about Kiefer Sherwood and Connor Garland, is help on the back end.
Yeah.
If Don Sweeney's going to
Absolutely.
make a trade, he's got to get help on that back end.
Absolutely. And I will say this about Zadorov on a personal level. And again, I have to mention the London Knights because I go way back to watching him play with the London Knights. I was never a fan of the way he played because that move or that offense that you just described there was a constant with him in junior, and he would get caught. He would um, turn it over, all sorts of different things. So I wasn't that big of a fan. But kudos to him. When he got to the NHL, he started to I guess in a way, redefine his game and become what he's become now. I honestly, I can't imagine this team without Nikita Zadorov right now. Everybody talks about Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm. Um, where would they be if Nikita Zadorov wasn't in the lineup right
Well, I would agree to you at a point. I still think it's a sum of its parts because we've noticed when Hampus Lindholm, and as much as like for some reason I get a lot of people in my comments lately, they're getting on Hampus Lindholm. I think Hampus Lindholm is getting a lot of ticky tacky penalties that don't make sense. The holding the stick stuff that drives me crazy, but I truly believe maybe the holding the stick stuff is because his knee isn't 100% and he's having a hard time. He's lost a little bit of his step, so it's hard for him. So he's doing a lot of reaching because players are beating him when they didn't in the
now?
past. And I think that, and it could be on his turn. It seems that he's having a hard time turning left, and it's costing him penalties. But
Yeah,
when Hampus Lindholm is not in the lineup, the Bruins are disastrous. It's like he's the glue on the back end. And I would love to see if we could have McAvoy, Zadorov, and Lindholm in the lineup for 5 consecutive games. Just give me 5 games
yeah,
to see
and
how
see,
much better, because I thought McAvoy and Zadorov were disastrous last year, but
yeah,
weren't this year. I thought they were disaster on the ice. The pairing of Zadorov and McAvoy last year was instant terrible. Like they're going to get scored on every single time. This year they've been phenomenal, but unfortunately, it just hasn't come to fruition. But there was a bright spot on the Bruins defense that many people like to dog, but I thought he played one of his best games last night, and that was Mason Lowry. He was blocking shots. He was getting in front of it. He was intercepting passes. He was looking and wasn't just jumping it away and doing that usual thing. He even had a time where he was coming behind the net, and it was almost like I was watching, and I was like, he instinctively wanted to cut in front of Swayman, and he didn't. Instead, he threw it off the boards. Mason Lowry in the past couple of years would try and carry that puck out of the zone, and instead he made the smart play, not the selfish play, and he put the puck along the boards, and they actually exited the neutral zone. I thought Mason Lowry again played a phenomenal game because I don't think the Bruins forwards played as good as a game as a lot of people think. Because yes, the Bruins won the game, but I thought their defense played phenomenal last night.
yeah.
Swayman was phenomenal as well. Again, Jeremy Swayman stunk 2 games ago, or I guess a game ago for him, but 2 games ago for the Bruins. Swayman was phenomenal last night, but I thought the Bruins defense stepped it up last night and helped win that hockey game.
And the thing I noticed most about Leroy last night was he's more physical, and by physical, I don't mean big body checks like Zadorov throws or like Charlie McAvoy is capable. He actually pushed his opponents to the boards, held them, battled for pucks there, and that play at the blue line where he fell down. Um, Normally, we would see Mason Lowry give up on that puck. Uh, I mean, it almost caused a turnover, but he kept fighting through it while sitting on his ass on the ice. And, we're seeing the evolution of Mason Lowry in front of us. And that 5 games where he was scratched, excuse me, probably the best thing that ever happened
100%. And he was rewarded last night. He got 17 minutes in ice time,
to
which for Mason Lowry is a
him.
lot. For Mason Lowry, that is a
Yeah,
lot of ice time, even because they're being smarter. Because last season, I felt with Mason Lowry, one of the issues I was noticing was they were playing him too much,
oh
and
yeah,
they were using him in terrible situations. Mason Lowry is an offensive defenseman. That's what he is. If he chips in defensively like he did last night, because he changed his game against New Jersey, because New Jersey is a tight checking team. It's their system. They're just like the Boston
yeah,
Bruins. Lowry was like, okay, my job is to get the puck out of the zone and move it forward. And it's not here to do some fancy plays. Even though Zadorov was doing some of that, what we usually see from Lowry, I was very impressed with his play. I was even impressed, even though I think he's been one of Boston Bruins' worst defensemen. I thought Andrew Peeke played a better game that he's played in a while. He was probably the worst player on the ice the other night, 2 games ago, when the Bruins got destroyed and Swayman looked a shell of himself. Andrew Peeke was the worst player on the ice. I thought he had a better bounce back game. And even though he got an empty net goal, I really like what Zadorov said after the game in a post game scrum. They were like, "Oh, he was like, it was great to see Peak score a goal, but maybe he can score one on a goalie next time." And as much as people think he's being playful, he is and he isn't. Zadorov is also holds players accountable. He's a lot like David Pastrnak. And if people haven't noticed, both Zadorov and Pastrnak have been hanging outside of the game. Leaders do that. They sense each other's both got leadership skills, and now you see those guys hanging outside of the rink, and they're more. I know Pastrnak likes to have a couple pops every now and then, and so does Zadorov. So I'm glad to see them getting along, and I have a funny feeling when eventually Boston Bruins announce the next captain, and I still think it's going to be Pastrnak, Zadorov will wear an A, and it won't be Hampus Lindholm. It'll be McAvoy and Zadorov. I think that was your assistant captains.
Hard to argue that. But these guys are pros. They know they don't have to have a letter on their jersey to be a leader. So, you look at when Bergeron and Chara were running the show, they weren't the only leaders. Like Krejci would rotate the A, but
Krug even wore the A a couple times.
Yeah, you don't need a letter on your jersey to be a leader. It's funny because um, fans put too much importance on who is the captain. Being a captain in today's game is not what it was like even 30 years ago. There was a time when a captain took a rookie. The rookie lived with the captain for a while. Those were the captain's duties. Is to look after teammates that way. Nowadays, everybody lives on their own. You might get a couple of rookies that share an apartment or something. The role of the captain in the NHL has totally changed. And, a lot of it now is having to deal with the media. I mean, 30 years ago, the media didn't exist with the way it is today.
My dad jokes that the Boston Bruins team that he played on in the late 70s, early 80s, if the media was around, they would be in trouble. He said the media was around, but he's like, they like to party. They were guys that got put on the IR, not for injuries that they sustained on the ice. In fact, one of their most prominent players got injured jumping from one balcony to another at a hotel, and he missed about 2 weeks.
You look at the 70 through 72 Bruins. I mean, obviously you're too young, Court, but that team should have been a dynasty. And what they did is they partied a lot. Remember, Phil Esposito was laying in the hospital with or was it Orr? I can't remember. No, it was Orr was in the hospital after a knee injury, and the team went up to the hospital and wheeled him out on a gurney to go out and party. Things like that don't happen this day and age in pro sports.
Yeah, which was interesting, like seeing that video of Zadorov chugging that beer. He made it. He had to talk about it. It was interesting. Reporters asked him about it. Like they wanted to know, like, because you don't see players doing that now and then. And he called it a cheat day. He's like, every now and then you should reward yourself with a cheat day.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's a very European attitude because if you notice, when you watch all those like Amazon stuff, like William Nylander will go out and have a couple pops. In fact, every single time the Boston Bruins come to town, William Nylander and David Pastrnak go out for dinner and they have a couple drinks. And they got a game the next day. And you know what? They still play fine. I understand a lot of players' bodies a temple. If you don't want to drink, it's totally fine. That's not to say like you need to party to be an NHL player, but it's also at the same time, there is more to life than just, X's and O's sometimes. But
exactly.
I did want to talk about Morgan Geekie getting his 22nd goal. He is second overall in the NHL leaders. He's playing phenomenal. But I love the way his goal was scored. So I want to watch. I can't show the video because the NHL will they'll copyright strike me till the moon. It is what it is. I wish I could. I know some channels across YouTube show hockey highlights. They were getting hit, but at the same time they don't. every single time I put up a highlight, I get hit either by Nesson or the NHL within seconds of me putting up my highlight. So I'm not going to do it, but I want to break down the play because Morgan Geekie, one, he's very selective of how he takes a shot. If he doesn't, I was talking to Dom about this yesterday while I was driving to my daughter's hockey game. He's very selective on how he takes his shots, but he was also very deceptive. So what he did last night is he was actually playing below the goal line. Both him and Steves were actually playing the corner, regardless of digging out that puck. The puck gets dug out by a player that played a very good game last night for the forwards, probably one of their best forwards last night, which was Elias Lindholm. I thought he played a very good defensive game. He was very strong at the dot. He was very responsible with his puck distribution last night. He played very smart. Lindholm was able to dig out the puck, but what Geekie did is Steves was forcing the defenseman to cover him closer to the net, and Geekie actually went behind the goal line, so he was deceptive. So the New Jersey defender didn't actually pay attention to him, even though the guy is second in the league in goals. He sits below the line. So Steves now takes the distraction. Lindholm is able to feed the puck to Geekie, who then sees what's about to happen because he's there. I'm noticing that's something Marco Sturm's having. He's having his forwards play a little bit deeper, and then the defense are a little bit closer in, and then you have the centerman kind of control the play. Now, Husadinov is it's kind of it made his career right now in Boston because he's very fast. And he's able to do that kind of stuff. But I thought Lindholm did a very good job of forcing everybody to come over to him. Steve's looked like that's where Lindholm was giving the pass, but instead Geekie comes from behind the net, skates out in front, and he's in the slot all by himself. So when he gets that pass, who, by the way, Morgan Geekie has one of the hardest shots in the NHL, he scores a goal. But it was the way he did it. So I went back and I watched a bunch of different games. Because he scores a ton 5-on-5, he's not even remotely a power play merchant, as for some reason people keep putting on the internet. He barely gets power play goals, but he does that a lot. So what he did, well, if Pasternak's there, he uses Pasternak almost as a screen. Everybody plays Pasta, and Geekie's able to get open. What he does since Pasternak has been gone is he plays low into the zone and then waits and then comes in the slot. He doesn't just sit there in the slot. And we see this, especially in minor hockey, and it's almost like taught, like sit in front of the net and battle in front of the net. Geekie doesn't do that. Doesn't sit in front of the net. He doesn't battle in the dirty areas. He actually is almost like a little water bug. He just continuously moves in almost like a figure eight and continuously moves so that the defenseman just says, okay, forget him. And they don't cover him. And he's able to deceptively get in the slot, and he scores his 22nd goal of the year. Like, guy's on fire.
Yeah, I mean, that goal was brilliant all the way around. From the Lindholm pass to Steve's doing the heavy work behind the goal line to, as you said, Geekie using his vision and his IQ to get to where he's supposed to be, and not only get to where he's supposed to be, but undetected. I mean, that was his classic a tic-tac goal that you will ever see in the NHL.
Yeah, I thought it was a very telling goal of what Morgan Geekie has done this year. It's almost like it's the Geekie goal. Pasta is very good at pretty much staying there in the slot. Geekie doesn't stay. He's constantly moving, constantly. He just doesn't
Yeah,
sit there. And I really like it. And I also like, Casey Middlestat gets another goal. I think Casey Middlestat has um, played very good for the Boston Bruins and proven that he's not this throw in, because he was. And we'll get to Will
yeah,
Zellers because I know Dom's going to talk about him, but Zellers was the main piece in that trade. And Casey Middlestat
absolutely.
was a throw in, and he's played phenomenal. If the Bruins aren't in the playoffs, the Bruins could get a first round pick possibly for Casey Middlestat. I'm not saying trade him right now. I'm just saying he's played very good. And in fact, he is making more money than Morgan Geekie, which is still hilarious to me. But
Well, it's funny, Court. Let me
yeah,
stop you there
sure.
because I want to throw something at you that I have been seeing a lot of online, and I'm actually writing about it right now. But I'm curious as to your thoughts. So, when Pasternak comes back, I'm seeing a lot of people do line projections that has Steves, Lindholm, Geekie, then Middlestat, Zaka, Pasternak. Okay, and then moving Arvidsson down to the third line and from there. Here's what I don't like about that. And as I wrote, as foolish as this may sound, I think Pavel Zacha is a better player without David Pastrnak. When he's playing with Pastrnak and let's say Geekie, he's always deferring. When he's on the line with Arvidsson himself and Middlestat, he's driving that line at both ends of the ice. Your thoughts on that?
Well, he made one of the. I think Zacha last night made a game-saving back check where he stole the puck. The puck went the other way, and that's led to the Middlestat goal. So I agree with you. It's funny. I agree with you on the Zacha point. But I want to talk about where I think Steves goes in the lineup, because I think Sturm pretty much said where Steves going to go in that lineup eventually. Because he pretty much said it's going to be he said it's impossible to take him out of the lineup. So, I think Zacha has played well, and I think you're right in the fact that Zacha does look for Pastrnak. So it would actually hurt Morgan Geekie to have because Zacha looks for Pasta. They played together in international play. He looks for him. Yeah, like you said, he defers to him. I still think when Pastrnak comes back, the top line will be Geekie, Lindholm, and Pastrnak, and I think that's what it should be because one, Geekie's goal production doesn't go down with Pasta on the line, and I think that line is played well enough. They unfortunately haven't had a chance to play together this year. Pretty much, they've had a couple games, but not many.
Right.
I thought they played very well at the end of the year, and I think. But I was mentioning before how much Lindholm does a very good job of being the defensive guy and letting the other guy shoot. I think it's the perfect position for
Yeah.
Lindholm, and I think both Pasta and there's enough goals to go around for both Pasta and Geekie for it to work. I actually think Steves gets moved to the third line, and not because of a bad thing. It's because of what was said, because I don't think Arvidsson can be as effective if he's not in a top six role, unfortunately. And I think
Agreed.
Arvidsson plays very well. And I think that line of Middlestat, Zacha, and Arvidsson is a very good line and is extremely effective. And Zacha plays better with those two. You got two centermen with a winger. So Middlestat is playing both ends of the ice. He's playing it very well, and he's being very smart with the puck. Arvidsson can use his speed, and Zacha can be hang back a little bit, and he doesn't have to use his speed as much. It reminds me a lot how Krejci used to play the game. Krejci wasn't the fastest skater, but he was very smart. When he entered the zone, he was very methodical on how he entered the zone and where he was going to send his first pass. I've noticed Zacha's been kind of the same. He's deferring the puck to Arvidsson, but not because that's the guy to give it to, because he lets Arvidsson use his speed. It allows Middlestat to get set where he needs to be, and it allows Zacha to survey the area and try and be either a screen or re-get the pass so that he can be the kind of like the quarterback out there on where the puck's going to go. So I don't think you mess with that. I think Steves would actually elevate Minton's game if you put Steves on that third line. And you have a line of Steve, Jeannot, and Minton is your third line, and that moves Kastelik down to the fourth line, because Kastelik, he's a Swiss Army knife. No matter where you put him in the lineup, he's just effective. That's what I would do, and it sounds like that's what Marco Sturm would do, because he keeps commenting on how Steves can play anywhere in this lineup, and it doesn't matter. He is effective where he is, just like what Minton said the last night being interviewed. He said, hey, I'm glad we chipped in offensively, but that's not our job. But I think if Steves, who cemented himself in this lineup, I think he's cemented himself.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Let's talk about Steves, because another thing I want to bring up. There's a lot of talk that the Bruins should extend him right now before he prices himself too high. And there are others that are saying, whoa, relax, it's only been 14 games. I don't think Steve's style is ever going to change. Doesn't matter whether it's game 14 or game 82. Here's the thing. He's a Group 6 unrestricted free agent unless he plays in 52 more games. Okay? Then he remains a restricted free agent. The Bruins have 52 games remaining in the season. So in other words, he can't miss a game between now and the end of the season, or it becomes a UFA. So I have two questions for you. A, would you extend him now? And B, what would be your top dollar for Alex Steves? I'm thinking somewhere a little less than the first contract Morgan Geekie got with the Bruins. So 2 years, just under $2 million.
Yeah, he got 180. What is it? He got his first, because I'm literally on Puckpedia. So keep going. His first contract with the Bruins,
Was it
1.4.
2 years?
No, that was with it
Yeah,
wasn't signed yeah, no, Seattle he signed for 1.4. Bruins was
2 million.
2 million on the dot.
Yeah, for 2 years.
Yeah.
So would you look at re-signing him now? Do you have faith that he forget the goal scoring? Can he continue to play the way he's playing? And what's the max value you put on
So he has played. I just want to pull up exactly how many games he's played right now.
that?
He has played. Just got to keep rolling down.
14.
14 games.
Yeah.
One, if you really trust Marco Sturm, you're going to go to him first and defer and say, is this guy for real? Because the eye test tells you he is.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt the Boston Bruins to let him play up into the All-Star break without a new contract. I don't think it's even going to make it any more expensive. I think if they re-sign him this year, the dollar amount isn't going to change much, regardless of how much he scores. But if you're going to re-sign Steves and reward him to show that locker room, this is what you like the guys down in Providence, who we'll talk about in a minute. I think this actually gets us to that conversation. It shows them if you play the right way, you get rewarded. It's not going to kill the Boston Bruins. They're only committed $45 million in cap in their forward group next year, and 27 on their defense, and $11 million in their goaltending. And I can't wait for the comments after I said that one out loud. But because you know where we're gonna get, because we still got these people for some reason who think Swayman stinks. But yes, but I think the dollar amount will be a little bit higher than 2 million just based on the way NHL salaries have gone. So you might look at a little bit above 2 million, but not much, just based on how these guys are getting these huge deals now. But they could get him based on this is the Boston Bruins. They could get him for like 185. They could get him for that amount if they did a 2-year deal. Kind of like what they did with Sean Corrali, even though Corrali's at the end of his career. The Boston Bruins have been known for getting guys to take less, even though people think they're paying guys too much. David Pastrnak, when he took his $11.2 million deal, he could have got more on the open market. 100%. So I think they might be able to get him for a little bit less than 2, but it's in that range. I think it's in the 2.3 to 185 is where you're going to sit with Steves. And I think you do it either right after the Christmas break, because the Bruins, I don't know if people realize this, they do a lot of that. They sign guys over the Christmas break, or you wait to the Olympic break. But I think you have to re-sign them before the end of the year, or you could get burned, because I think the decision between who stays and who goes between Blumel and Steves has already been made, and I don't think Blumel ever sees the ice ever again in a Boston Bruins uniform.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he did. I really would.
And I think Jeffrey Vial, as much as a lot of people for some reason, some Bruins media that cover the Providence Bruins like this guy, he's not going to be like when Pastrnak comes back, he's the guy that goes back down. And I think Steves has to stay in the lineup. You have no choice. And then you're, unfortunately, who I think has played very well, and that's Easimont, it bumps him out of the lineup. And he's the guy that rotates in and out, unfortunately, because Kastelik has to move down to the fourth line.
So where do you have Hustadinov?
I think your fourth line is Husadinov at center, and I think you rotate him between him and Corrali.
Okay.
Because I don't think Corrali can sustain the workload of a full season. And I think Husadinov has proven that he needs to be in the lineup, because I think he's played extremely well, regardless of when he sits, doesn't sit, whether he scores or not. He doesn't hurt you when he's on the ice. I really like Husadinov. I haven't really liked Sean Corrali.
But Corrali's been giving them the PK that they need.
I know, and it's almost like you want Husadinov to turn into that guy, but I agree with you there. I think Husadinov gets you way more speed, which you need in today's NHL over Corrali. And I think Kastelik can go anywhere in the lineup, even though he sometimes is the odd man out, and that's the guy Sturm sits, is Kastelik. He almost like rotates. The only guy that doesn't come out is Jeannot and Fraser Minton and those bottom
Yeah.
6 players. Everybody else rotates. And I don't think Easymont has played bad. I think he's played effective. It's just, unfortunately, Steves has become a vital piece to the Boston Bruins middle 6. He's played well, and Marco Sturm talks about him in almost every postgame. That tells me he's staying in the lineup regardless of what happens.
He trusts him. That's his big word. I trust him, and he's said that about a few players. Um, I don't recall him ever saying it about Hustadinov or Easymont, to be honest with you.
He never talks about Easymont, but he talked about Hustadinov, about how when he had Hustadinov out of the lineup and he answered the call and came back in and played the right way. And he said, until he stops playing the right way, he stays in my lineup. Good. He rewards. Sturm does a very good job. That's why I don't think Victor Arvidsson would drop out of that top 6, because he really likes Victor Arvidsson.
Yeah.
He trusts him. You talked about trust. He trusts Victor Arvidsson. Victor Arvidsson is on the team because of Marco Sturm.
I believe that.
But eventually, Victor Arvidsson is the first one out the door if the Bruins aren't in a playoff spot, or even if they're just knocking at the door, you still trade Arvidsson.
I think you have to at that point.
Yeah.
I do.
So this brings me to one of the reasons you're here, because we'll get into the goaltending thing. I want to talk about prospects first, because the amount of people that hop into my DMs and ask about prospects, and it's not that I don't follow the prospects. I try my best. I'm just not as tuned in as someone like Dom here. Now, right now, the Hockey News has the Boston Bruins depth on forward as a C+. They have their defense as a C, and their goalies as a B-. They have their number 1 rated prospect, according to the Hockey News, is James Higgins. Number 2 is Fabian Lysell. Number 3 is Fraser Minton, which is, I think Minton is no longer a prospect. He's solidified himself. So we'll take him out of the conversation. Number 4 is Dean Letourneau. Some could argue that Letourneau could move up on that list. Number 5 is William Moore. Number 6 is Merkulov. And I almost don't even want to put him on the list because he is not a Boston Bruin. Anyway, they're trying to move him. Number 7 is Liam Peterson. Number 8 is Elliot Gronwald. Number 9 is William Zellers. And number 10 is Max Warner. Dom, my question to you is, who's your top 5 and why?
First of all, I have to disagree with their grades. There's no way that the Bruins goaltending prospects is better than their forward group. And I would argue it's not better than their defensive group, as weak as it is.
Their goaltending prospects right now are, according to this, Luke Calavan, Michael DiPietro, Philip Swedback, and Simon Zajac.
Yeah,
that's check.
That doesn't deserve a better grade than their forward group.
No, especially with DiPietro there, who's never going to play in the NHL.
Yeah, I agree. James Higgins is number 1 right off the bat. I don't agree that Fabian Lysell is number 2 anymore, I think. And I'm not basing this on 1 year. I saw this kid play a few years ago, even before he was drafted. And I know there's a lot of people that labeled him a bust last year. And I kept saying, just wait. This year 1 doesn't mean anything. Number 2 is Dean Letourneau. Number 3, I wouldn't even move myself to number 3. Number 3 for me is Matthew Poitras. And I know there's going to be a lot of kickback here. Matthew Poitras, look, everybody said that the battle at training camp was going to be between Poitras and Minton for the 3C spot. And I vehemently disagreed with that. Poitras was battling with with Middlestat originally for the 2C spot. To me, Mitten was a lock for the 3 spot. And if you ask me, my opinion, Patra's ceiling is that of a 2-line center, and Mitten's ceiling is that of a 3rd-line center, a high-end 3rd-line center.
I would almost say Patra is still in the Bruins organization and not been moved. And I have under good authority that Patra's name is definitely out there.
Oh, it's out there.
Yeah,
And
when
he's
teams
the
are talking
number.
to the Bruins right now,
They're asking
they're
for
asking about him, and the Bruins would 100% move him. And I think they want a defenseman. That's why this Sherwood stuff still makes me laugh. Sure, the Bruins would want him, but they already have a younger version in Tanner Jeannot that is just as effective. So why bring in the same player? But I think Patra, I agree with you that he has to be in the top 6. We've both been saying this for forever. I think, unfortunately, the only way he gets there is if the Bruins are as bad as they were last year going close to the trade deadline, because then they'll move Pavel Zacha. But until they move Pavel Zacha, and you already have James Higgins, it's above him in the top 6. It's a tough thing for Matthew Patra now to crack this Bruins lineup, unfortunately. It's
Yeah.
almost in the situation of he's better off going somewhere else.
Now, people say to me his production is down in Providence. Well, yeah, it's down. But here's the thing: Matthew Poitras wasn't sent down to Providence to work on his open. Matthew Poitras was sent to Providence to perfect the Marco Stern system, and that is the other end of the puck. Unfortunately, it's affected his offense. He's got to find that happy medium. And over the last 3 or 4 games, he's found it. So I expect a rebound from Padre. But I agree. I actually wrote about it last week uh, that the number one prospect in the Bruins system opposing teams are asking for is Matthew Poitras. And it's not because they think he's better than James Higgins. They're realistic. They know they're not getting Higgins in a deal, so why even bother asking for him? So I have Higgins, I have Letourneau, I have Poitras, and then I've got Fabian Lysell, who, like Poitras, is still, I mean, there's been nobody hotter in the system than him over the last 3 or 4 games as well. Um, but it's the rest of the Stern system that he's got to learn. The talent is all there. The skill is all there. It's everything else that he's got to learn.
And he's an RFA at the end of the year.
He's an RFA. Me, if it were me, I would give him a run to see whether he fits in my future.
So in 17 games, he's got 9 goals, 10 assists, and 19 points. He's at a 1.12 points per game.
Yeah.
He arguably, this is why I think there's more of a bigger thing going on. One, it was reported this summer that teams were asking about Fabian Lysell, and there was a possibility of moving him.
Yeah. I can guarantee Edmonton was one of them.
Yeah, it was the Edmonton Oilers that, and I think he could probably succeed in Edmonton, but I think Matt Savoy has been playing well enough right now that that those conversations will disappear, and I don't think they've resurfaced because I think Savoy is got that role. I think the Oilers they were sold on Isaac Howard, but they weren't sold on Isaac Howard to be a top 6 guy. Right. The fact that he did not get called up while Pastrnak has been down is extremely telling to me. Now, Pastrnak is skating again. It sounds like he won't be back next week. It might be, in the next 2 weeks, we could see Pastrnak back in this lineup. They have that time to insert Fabian Lysell in this lineup. But if you're Marco Sturm, with the way Steves is playing, how do you bring Fabian Lysell in right now and put him in your top 6? That's tough. That's a tough. Like Marco Sturm said that he and I believe this when he said that. It sounds like they're giving him more autonomy on who goes up and who goes down. Sounds like it. He says he's taking the words of what people say. I've known in the past that the Boston Bruins, Don Sweeney pretty much makes the decisions on who goes up and goes down. It sounds like Sturm is getting input in that. when we
Well, and let's not forget, Ryan Mouchinel has a lot of say in it too. Like, he coaches them. He knows. Stern will ask him, or will say to Mouchinel, "This is what I need. Who do you recommend?" And then the four of them, meaning Stern, Mouchinel, Evan Gold, and Donnie Sweetie, will have a discussion on who to look. I will say this about Fabian Lysell. There's a lot of shit being thrown around from both sides of the argument. A lot of it um, taking quotes and things that have been said and um, not taking the context, but rather using it to fit
the
somebody's
narrative.
argument,
Yep.
right? um, I think Don Sweeney is a fan of Fabian Lysell, which is why he hasn't traded him yet.
Agreed.
I think Fabian Lysell is on Cam Neely's do not like list.
1000%. He is not a Cam Neely player. Even when he was taken, I was like, wow, Don Sweetie won that argument. I wonder what he had to give up to get that guy picked in that
Yeah,
draft. In
absolutely.
fact, James Higgins is not a Cam Neely player.
No,
Ian Letourneau is a Cam Neely player. James Higgins is not a Cam Neely player.
absolutely. So that's my top four. Number five, and I don't know why the Hockey News has Max Wanner ahead of him, is Will Zellers. Um,
Who scored probably one of the nicest goals I've seen in a very long time.
that was filthy. That was that was high end hockey IQ and puck skills. Absolutely. Um, I think he's tied for second for most goals by a freshman in the NCAA this year.
And in fact, there he is. And in fact, there's countless articles that are not even coming from the Boston area of how ridiculous it is he was left off the World Junior roster for Team USA.
Um,
I don't know whether that to be true or not, but there's a lot of you always get for people understanding. World Juniors are huge here in Canada. Like
yeah,
more people watch the World Juniors during the Christmas break than they watch the NHL.
yeah,
The
absolutely.
NHL just gets turned. I myself watch as much as I possibly can. I'm going to be paying very close attention. I love watching it. It's some of the best hockey you'll see. So if you don't know, watch that. But Will Zellers, this happens every year where there's a guy who doesn't make the team. I think last year with Team Canada, Misa didn't make the team, and everybody lost their freaking minds. They are all, and it's always offensive guys because the World Juniors is the most tight checking hockey you'll see. Do you agree or disagree? What is your take on Will Zellers not being named to this team? Because James Higgins did. For those listening, James Higgins, who has 15 games in Boston College this year, 10 goals, 7 assists, 17 points. He's at a 1.13 points per game. He's actually higher than his average last year. He's only got 6 penalty minutes. And Higgins has also played center and wing. He has played wherever he has been asked to play this year. Higgins is on the team. He is pretty much their go-to guy. He's going to be first line center, and it's the guy. What about Will Zellers? Should they have put him on the team?
Well, before I get to that, let me say let's go over who's going. So Hagens is going.
Yep.
Vashik Blanar is probably going to make the Czech team.
Yeah, they have him as on their projected roster. He's on it.
Yeah, they still have to cut one defenseman, but in the Five Nations tournament that they were in last month, um, as the precursor, he was one of their best defensemen.
Yeah, they don't have him as they have him as like he's in the top 4.
Yeah,
He's there.
So we know Chris Pelosi is going to the Spengler Cup, and so is Ryan Walsh. That's over the holidays. As for Zellers, and we'll throw Dean Letourneau in here as well. The
I have a hard time putting him on Team Canada, but continue.
I have a hard time as well, but here's the issue with USA Hockey and Hockey Canada. They put way too much emphasis on the summer showcase.
Yes.
Okay. Um, the way Dean Letourneau is playing right now, I could make an argument to make the Canadian roster.
Agreed. Letourneau has been,
Okay.
and for those people not knowing what, because we only kind of like talked about Letourneau and Hagens and went to talk about the guys that are lower on the list, which is obvious. Letourneau has been lights out. And in fact, one of their biggest weapons, like Hagens got moved out of the wing of how well Letourneau had been playing. Like, that's
Well,
crazy.
can we can
I'll get his stats. Keep going. I'll get his stats.
um, the one thing
16,
about Hagen,
9 goals, 8 assists, 17 points. I wanted to ask you about Hagens going over the wing. I know I asked you in the car,
okay.
but I want you to was that the Bruins or is that Boston College?
Well, here's the thing, and that's what I'm going to touch on because there's a lot of talk about Hagens being moved to the wing. Hagens doesn't take faceoffs. Once the puck is dropped, um, depending on who he's playing with, he reverts back to the center position and takes the centerman's role.
Yes, I saw. He's got to be stronger
He,
at the faceoffs.
yeah, he lines up on the left wing for faceoffs, but when the play is going on, he's got the responsibilities of the centerman, whether it's in the O zone or the D zone. So this he's playing wing is more about faceoffs than it is anything else.
And I will say, growing up, I was a very good at the faceoff, and as I got later on in my playing career, and it's not like I was playing a high level, I would take the draw and then move over to the wing.
Yeah, it happened. It happened. So back to Zellers and a little bit about Letourneau. As I said, USA Hockey and Hockey Canada, way too much emphasis on the summer showcase. And Will Zellers, in all honesty, did not have a very good uh, summer showcase. And it shouldn't be about that. It should be a more of what have you done for me lately? Classic example, Elliot Gronwald, who was at the summer showcase and was very good at the summer showcase. Um, and a lot of mock USA lineups had him as a possibility because of the good summer showcase that he had. But he really hasn't had that great a season with Quinnipiac in the NCAA and therefore not on the roster. So on one hand, they put too much emphasis on it, and on the other hand, we as fans or media put too much emphasis on it.
And I would say, in fact, I would say Max Wanner and Frederick Burnett have moved up on the line of depth chart over Gronwald.
Well, um, I don't see I don't see Max Wanner ever playing an NHL game.
I don't see Grunwald either. That's the other thing to these people. You could have a top 10 list and only 2 ever play in the NHL.
Exactly,
No.
exactly. Um,
I think William Zellers will get a shot at playing in the NHL.
I think so too.
Dean Letourneau, James Hagens, yes.
I think any of the 5 will. When it comes to Patra and Lysell, it may not be with Boston.
Yeah, I don't think it will be, to be totally honest. I think
Yeah,
Merkulov was even called up, and I think it was obvious that Sturm didn't want him up. The talk before the game, he was like, "Yep, he's here." He didn't say much about him. He gave him no minutes after the first period, and he never he never touched the ice again.
yeah,
I think that was more of let's throw him up there and see if we can move him in a trade. I think that's exactly what that was. They threw him in the lineup to see if he would play well so that they could move him. Because if you look at who is at the Boston Bruins games, every scout in the NHL is checking out the Bruins right now.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Highly scouted is the Boston Bruins right now. And that's not because the Bruins are trying to add people. I really need people to understand this. I don't think Don Sweeney is even attempting to go all in. I think he still trades regardless of where they are. I think he still moves out to gain assets.
Yeah, and I mean, you can argue whether it's the right move or not, but
if as long as he gets, if, say the Bruins, I'll say this, say the Bruins, because we're still talking about prospects, it still has a lot to do with it. The Bruins have a very good team down in Providence. I don't think anybody can deny it. They are playing great down in Providence.
Mm-hmm.
If the Bruins are just knocking on the door and they are a wild card team and they still make the playoffs, that's all the Jacobs family knows they're going to get out of this team. They would be okay with it if Don Sweeney went to them. I'm still going to move out assets. They wouldn't trade Zaka. I still don't think they would do
No.
that, but they would still trade Victor Arvidsson. And I think Alex Steves has made it so you can. If he continues at this pace, he has
Right.
to continue, but he's made it so you can.
And I think you could also look at Andrew Peak being moved.
1000%. Even though Sturm continues to say, and the guys say nice things about him, the analytics says he is one of the worst defensemen on this team. Him and Henry Yukiharu are by far the worst two players on that back end. It's unfortunate, but the stats are saying it.
And name me an NHL team that is not looking for a right shot defenseman.
Yeah, they can play big. The Bruins could find someone in the offseason that could be Andrew Peak all day long. They can be a bottom six guy. No problem. Bottom pair guy. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah. So, which, I mean, you can look at Soderstrom last night. I didn't think he was bad in his first game. I thought he had a good game last night. Another PJ Axelson special out of Sweden. NHL.com had a good article on Soderstrom yesterday. I can't remember if it was written by Emily Benjamin or not.
I'll pull it up.
She usually has the Bruins write-ups on NHL.com. But she talked to Soderstrom about when he left to go back home to Sweden. And he downright said, towards the end in Arizona, he lost his passion for the game. And he went back to Sweden and he found his passion for the game back. He got it back. So, no, he did not have a good training camp.
It was Benjamin.
Okay. So he did not have a good camp when he came back, but, again, he was coming from the larger ice surface back to the smaller ice surface. And there was a period of adjustment for him. And he's put his time in Providence. And I thought last night he looked very good next to Mason Lohrei. I mean, when I saw that Sturm was going to pair the two of them together, I thought, oh, this is not going to end well. But
Lohrei played phenomenal last night.
Yeah, I think Soderstrom was very good last night. He kept it simple. He made some nice plays from the blue line on in the own zone. He took care of business in his own zone, and the Bruins on the right side, even down in Providence, are very, very weak. But this is a former Boreas Salming winner.
But you could use Victor Arvidsson at the trade deadline instead of getting a first round pick, because if he continues at this pace, he probably a high second. But you might be able to pry a team that's desperate if they have injuries to get a first round pick. But you might be able to get a young right shot defenseman out of their system for Victor Arvidsson. I'm not saying you're getting a Will Zellers type trade that you got for Charlie Coyle. That would have to involve Pavel Zacha to get a player of that ilk. But you might be able to get a guy that can hop into Providence and possibly be a future guy in your bottom pair on the right side by trading Arvidsson.
You could, but you have to balance that against a bottom pair right shot defenseman versus a high second or early first round pick is an excellent draft, a deep draft with a lot of
because both, for everybody's listening, both Brunette, who just got injured down in Providence, and Harris, who's injured for the Bruins, who are serviceable, both shoot left.
Yeah, but Harris can play the right side.
Yes, but we're getting back into the. I want to circle back to the prospects before we get into who's regressed. I want to circle back because myself and everybody included, the Bruins have something special in James Higgins. There was a lot even
Absolutely.
at the beginning of the year saying, "Oh, the Bruins got a bust." And in fact, there was a lot even at the draft. People were like, "Oh, the Bruins," like we all thought the Bruins got something, but there were some talking heads that didn't think he was even should have been that high even where the Bruins took him. James Higgins has been on fire down in Boston College. Well, heck, Boston College has been on fire lately. Riding the backs of Letourneau and Higgins, they are, if you look at
Absolutely.
Boston College roster, it's not that good of a team. And they are literally riding Higgins and Letourneau right now. Where
And
do you
they've got some injuries.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. But the
to
Boston Bruins, I think, and I just want to give the Boston Bruins will sign James Higgins at the end of the year, and he will play for the Providence Bruins. I don't think there's any question. James Higgins will sign at the end of the year. Dean Letourneau, I think, goes back for one more year. The Bruins won't sign him at the end of the year unless if Letourneau somehow even gets better than he is right now, you might see him in Providence. But Higgins for sure gets signed. Do we think that Higgins is actually going to be higher than a 2C possibly? And do you think that Higgins sees NHL action this year?
yeah, his ceiling is number one center. Do I see him? Let's put it this way: the Bruins don't usually rush him to the NHL. Even Charlie McAvoy,
Still
when
went to
he came
Providence
out of,
first.
he only signed an AHL contract. His
Yeah, an injury got him in the lineup. An injury got
injury
him in the lineup.
injury got the Bruins to sign him to his contract and bring him up for the playoffs. Um, and that's the way they like to operate. I will say this about Higgins because people are worried about his production. As you know, every preseason I do a projection of where every prospect should be. I had James Higgins projected for 21 goals. He's on pace for 23. Um, Dean Letourneau. This sounds stupid already, and I would have been glad with his projected um, offense of 7 goals, 11 assists, 19 points or 18 points. Sorry, he's already passed the goals. He's got 9.
Yeah, he's got 17 points already.
He's on pace for 20 goals, 18 assists. I would have been happy in this what should have been his year one with the 18 points. He's over double that. So to answer your question, because I'm going to include Letourneau in that, I'm absolutely in agreement with you. He returns to BC for another year. Will Hagen see NHL time this year? Two things are dependent on that. What they do at trade deadline is Pavel Zacha gone? Is Casey Middlestat gone? Is Elias Lindholm injured? A lot of things play into that. Um, if we have the status quo, my answer would be no, because where does he fit in? And I don't think if they're blowing it up and they make the trades that we talked about, I don't think they want to bring Higgins into that situation.
No, I think that's where Poitras comes in. If Poitras isn't moved,
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't see where a scenario either way where Higgins gets into NHL games this year, unless it's a McAvoy situation. There are injuries, and you absolutely need him.
So, but do you think he didn't answer my second? Does he sign with Providence and does he play there this year?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
And do you think that the Bruins stole him at the draft?
I my argument from day one or June 1 leading up to the draft, even draft night, James Higgins was the third best player in the draft. Matthew Schaefer, number one, Michael Neeson, number two, James Higgins, number three. The guys like Martone,
Over
Bedard,
Frondell, eh? I really like
yeah,
Frondell.
no. So do I, but I just think James Higgins was the third best player in that draft class. I've been adamant about it from day one leading up to the draft. And um, nothing I've seen since then has changed my opinion of it.
Well, you heard it. So I want to know, just because we'll go quickly through this, because we great that we've spent this much time on prospects because everybody's wanted it. Who has regressed? And if I right away off the bat, Merkulov regressed. He is a shell of himself. I don't know what it is. He's played well in Providence, but when he came up to the NHL level, I know it was only a couple shifts. He looked absolutely terrible. He did
Yeah,
not look like a guy who was like, "Oh my god, I got to play good to be in this lineup." He barely back checked on one shift. It was he after that one shift where he barely back checked, he didn't see the ice again. I bet you Sturm was like, "Well, you're done if that's the
yeah,
attitude you're going to give." But
exactly.
who's regressed to you?
Well, I'm going to go with two players right out of Boston College. It's not so much because of their play. I I think their career trajectory and even the their chance of turning pro has greatly regressed because of injuries, and that's Oscar Yelvik and Andre Gasol. Gasol is out to the new year. Yelvik missed the last two-thirds of the season last year and has only played 3 games this year. These were two guys that looked to be um, potential NHL players, even though they were late round picks. Yelvik was a fifth, Gasol was a seventh. Um, to the point where getting a pro contract looks unlikely for at least one of them, if not maybe both. And I have to tell you, too, that the absence of two of them has given Letourneau the opportunity to do what he's doing in BC because he's getting more ice time from it. But on the flip side, I think it's affected Hagen's offense because they're missing two highly offensive players that he. Let's put it this way: Hagens would have been playing with at least one of them.
Yeah, Higgins has barely anybody to pass the puck to. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but it just is what it is.
So uh, they're the two that, not because of their play, I think have fallen way down because of circumstances. Um, if I have to say one who's really fallen off because of their play, it has to be Merkulov. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's like I liked him last year. I even liked Blumel at the beginning of the year. Both just nope.
Yeah.
You just don't fit in the system. Merkulov, maybe it's an attitude thing, but that shift that just told me right away. I was agreeing with Sturm, like that guy should never see the ice again. I was like, wow. Like I don't see how Merkulov ever plays for the Boston Bruins ever again after just that shift alone. Because if as long as Marco Sturm's the coach, there is no changing his attitude about how that guy played. That is like embarrassing almost.
Yeah.
It was terrible. But great on the prospects. I want to get into your article you just wrote just recently because I want to talk about Jonas Corposalo because at the time of the trade, everybody kept saying, and you pointed out this in your article, Bob Asenza is going to fix him. He's the wizard. He's going to do this, 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 and this. Jonas Corposalo at the time, I said that doesn't make any sense because the statistics tell me that he has been one of the worst goalies in the league, and he will continue being one of the worst goalies in the league. At the end of last year, and this is also summarizing your article at the same time, he stepped up to the mic and said, I wanted to play more. And he should have. I think they rode the living daylights out of Swayman last year, even when he was struggling. And I felt that Montgomery was doing because one, he didn't care and he didn't want to be here. And two, he was being told to punish him because a certain someone in that front office was made to look foolish in the offseason. Even I think both of them were both idiots in the offseason. I think Swayman's biggest mistake was to talk about it publicly about your contract. You should never do that. I don't care what he said about his quoting him, I still think is the dumbest thing ever, but you shouldn't talk about it. If you want to be I know Swayman's open, but just don't talk about it. Let your agent do that. Just move on to a different subject. But Cam Neely clapping back more than Swayman did. In fact, Cam Neely took every opportunity he could to talk about Swayman's contract to the media, made him look foolish and childish and the bigger idiot out of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Swayman has been arguably lights out. In fact, except in Boston, there is articles right now trying to make the case for Swayman to be the starting goalie for Team USA. I don't think he will be. I think your goalie is Connor Hellebuck. That goes without saying. I think Swayman has solidified himself as a spot. Your goalies are Ottinger, Swayman, and Hellebuck. I still don't think Swayman sees the ice, but he'll be at the Olympics for Team USA. It's arguably, I know Swayman had his 2 bad games, but he's arguably been the Bruins' best player. And when he did have his last bad game, it was his 6th start in the last 8 games. You get tired. But I think
Yeah.
it's safe to say at this point, yes, Korpisalo had a good game last game, but you pointed it out in your article. Unless he gets high volume, he is absolutely dreadful. And he has a knack more than Swayman this year to let in the first or second shot without question every game. It is crazy how many times this is happening to him. What is your analysis on Joonas Korpisalo? Could the Bruins actually get anything for them? And yes, the Linus Ullmark trade, I still think the Bruins, now that Letourneau has turned into what he is, and Castellac is what it is, I think they did okay. But man, Korpisalo is bad.
Yeah. The problem is, Court, if you move him, you almost have to get a goaltender back.
No, I think you have to. Like everybody's like, oh, move him to Toronto, move him here, move him there. 1, why would the Leafs do that? 2, you still have to replace him because no one in Providence can play in the NHL right now.
Yeah.
And you already screwed up moving Bussy. You did. It's that I think we can say, as much as we all at the time were like, oh, Bussy didn't play well in those games, it seems that we were wrong. He's played well for Carolina.
Well, yes and no. 2 different teams. Like
Systems, 2 different systems, yes.
2 different systems. It's it's hard to imagine how he would do in Boston. Like he'd almost have to be at a Swayman level to help his team out. Look, you can't be sub 500 with your backup goaltender and expect to make the playoffs. Um, right now the Bruins are tied with Tampa Bay for first place
In the division.
in the division. I don't care about games in hand. There's 2 things about games in hand. 1, the other team has to win them for them to mean anything. And 2, it means the other teams in the division are going to have to go through the grueling schedule the Bruins just went through.
Which they've been through the hardest schedule in the NHL, but their point percentage is .567, which actually puts them 4th if we went by
Right.
point percentage.
Right. But then again, they play more games, which
Yes.
lowers your points percentage. So,
But they're a +2.
yeah, and only 2 teams in the division are a plus.
Them and
Right,
Tampa.
correct?
And the Montreal Canadiens, who have the highest points percentage, are a -6 because Sam Montembeault has been bad.
Right. So if Corpusalo was at 500, what is he? 5-6-1 or 5-6?
Pull it up. Just keep going. I'll get it.
If you'd given them one more win, one more win, they'd be sitting in first place.
He's 5-6. Yeah, he's 5-6 with a 3.38 goals against average and an 8.88 save percentage. Jesus Christ.
One more win. If their backup goaltender had given them one more win, they'd be sitting in first place all alone
Yes.
at the 30-game mark. And who would have thought this in September?
And I want to add, last season, Korpisalo got easier games. Swayman played all the hard games, and I still to this day never understood it. They've done a very good job. They play Ottawa. Korpisalo goes in net. I still think that's the call. You always should play the guy that used to play there.
Yeah.
Korpisalo has played. He had a decent. I wouldn't. Sorry, he had an okay record last year. I still think Korpisalo was bad last year. But again, he has 3 bad games, 1 good game, and then whenever he has a good game, everybody hops in the comments and says, "See, he's amazing." I don't think he is. He has played some tougher teams this year, but he hasn't played well when he plays those tougher teams, unfortunately.
No, but you look at his save percentage in games where he faces more than 30 shots versus he's like sub 890 in games that he's faced less than 30 shots.
And
Sub
before his win
890.
against St. Louis, he had 3 losses in a row: Rangers, Anaheim, Ottawa.
Yeah. But he's had save percentages in up to 943 in games where he's faced over 30 shots.
He likes to see the rubber. In fact, he plays better if he does let the goal in on the very first shot and then gets peppered for the rest of the game. But if you're the Boston Bruins players, you know when he goes in the net, you're going to give up the first goal.
Yeah, it's a totally different team in front of him.
Yeah. It's actually a mirror to what happened last year when Swayman was struggling. You could see it on the players' faces. They knew that Swayman was going to let one in real quick.
Yeah, and let's face it, this team is not built to come back from behind, or they're not built to play while trailing.
No, they're built to protect the lead.
Yeah. So you're rarely getting that from Korpisalo. But the answer is not in Providence. Zajac may get there one day, but he's still adjusting to the North American game. And Michael DiPietro, I love him. I loved him way back since his days with the Windsor Spitfires. So I think he's an incredibly athletic goaltender. But athleticism in the NHL only gets you so far if you're a goaltender. So I don't think the answer is there.
No, I think he's just this. I hate because my dad was one of the shortest ever to play the game. I think he's too tiny to be a goalie, and he flops all over the ice. Hasek used to do that, but Hasek was a ginormous man inside that net. DiPietro, unfortunately, I don't think he can do that in this day and age. And even Tim Thomas, and people are gonna. I know I'm gonna get killed right now. Tim Thomas plays in the NHL now. He looks like Jordan Binnington. It's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
he would get lit up. These players are better. If anybody saw, not last game because he didn't, the Chicago Blackhawks just got shelled. Watch how Connor Bedard shoots that puck. It is disgusting. You're not like these players are playing better than they're faster. They shoot harder. Morgan Geekie, player on Boston Bruins, has one of the hardest shots in the league. It's a different game, and athletic goalies are going to get lit up like it's nobody's business. It's just unfortunate. The pace. You look at Georgi Merkulov. He goes from the AHL to the NHL, and he's a shell of himself. He's lighting it up in the AHL. But it's a totally different game. It's like the AHL is almost like 5-6 years behind to what the NHL is all the time on what it is with regards to skill. But you're also not playing against the higher skill, right?
Right.
But these players are more accurate, higher skill. DiPietro he's not an NHL goalie. He is a career AHL goalie, and there's nothing wrong with that. But right now, the Boston Bruins, their 2 biggest issues, their backup goalie and defense on the right side. There's your biggest issues the Boston Bruins face. Everybody keeps talking about it. I'll go right back to it. Connor Garland, who is linked to the Bruins every year, and now Kiefer Sherwood. That is not the Boston Bruins issue. They are not having an issue scoring goals. Alex Steeves has provided secondary scoring. Husadinov, when he's been up in the top 6, has provided secondary scoring. David Pastrnak has been out of the lineup, and they're still scoring goals. Their issue, for the first time in a long time, isn't secondary scoring. It is defense and goaltending. And it's not Jeremy Swayman, because Jeremy Swayman right now, as much as people don't want to know this, he is in heart considering conversations right now. He's not going to win it, but when they show the top 10, Swayman's name is there. Swayman's name is there for Vezina right now. Jeremy Swayman is playing like one of the best goalies in the NHL. He is, 3rd in goals saved above expected. He has faced more high danger chances than anybody else. And in fact, if he was on, say, the Colorado Avalanche, where everybody wanted to send him last year, he would probably be the number one goalie in the NHL right now. Like, without a doubt. Number one goalie in the NHL, because there's a better team in front of him.
If he was with Colorado, I think Colorado uh, would be the only team in the NHL without a regulation loss.
Yeah, he's played. Swayman has played like last night. Yeah, the goal that was scored on him, it was interesting. The goal gets scored, and within seconds, I have someone in my comment section on YouTube saying, Swiss cheese Swayman, they can't stop a puck, blah, blah, blah. One, the puck actually, he makes the first save, and then the shot originally that came from the point actually like hit off a couple people before he even came in. So he still tracked it to make the first save. Unfortunately, Pavel Zacha, who had a very good game, was out of position, and the defenseman was chasing. So there was no one there to take Timo Meier, who is a huge man in front of the net, to just pop in a rebound, barely have to make an effort. That's on the players in front of him. The goalie's job always, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, is to make the first save. Even if he kicks out a huge rebound, you still should have someone else in front of him. It is not always on the goalie. But again, they scored. Swayman didn't get his pad down. It's unfortunate. It wasn't like the game before when you're like, ugh, some of those goals. Not the JVR game, but the game against Detroit, he was terrible. He was bad. He wasn't cutting down his angles. He was bad. But last night, he made some big, huge saves that kept them in the hockey game, and he held them. They got outshot, and they still won.
Yeah, it's something I want to touch on when you said out of position um, came to mind.
The center, I just want to add, I've said this to my daughter a bunch. She plays defense, and when she rushes, she's like, well, no one's covering. I'm like, that's not your fault, though.
No,
The centerman's job, if the defenseman is out of position, is to know that and cover. It is what it is. That's why people that play center, when they get older, such as myself, when I play men's league or something like that, I can play defense because you should know that position just as well as you know yours.
Yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
And this goes a little bit to that because last night there were two instances where I believe they were both in the second period. One, Zadorov was chasing his man out by the blue line, and two, Mason Lohrei was doing the same thing. Different plays, different points in the period, and people complaining about it. Well, no, that's the Bruins system, and I think New Jersey made an adjustment in the second period to have their third forward come back to the blue line to draw the defenseman out. Because under Sturm's system, the defenseman's supposed to go with them, even if they're out at the blue line. The centerman, in that case, is supposed to take the responsibility of the defenseman with in this case last night the Devils second forward because the other defenseman had the other forward covered. It's confusing for fans, but when it becomes second nature to players and they can do it without thinking, it's a great system.
I don't disagree. I just think for the Bruins to be more successful this year, they need to upgrade their backup goaltender.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think it's a priority for Don Sweeney at this point. I really don't. I think a priority, even as much as they keep talking about forwards, is to find help on the back end, especially with Brunette now going down in Providence. They are bleeding defensemen. Charlie McAvoy is skating again, but he's not coming back till January. Some people say he's going to be out long. The man will be back in January. He's talking. He's saying all the right things. They're figuring out a way for him to eat. He just needs to gain the weight. If this was the playoffs, I still say this, McAvoy wouldn't have missed a beat. He would have been on the ice just like Chara was. But they don't need him to do that. McAvoy will be back. He'll be back around January. But until then, they need help on that back end. Right now, their defense is Mason Lohrei, Andrew Peeke, Hampus Lindholm, Victor Soderstrom, Jason Asparat, who Asparat's played well, and Nikita Zadorov. You need help back there. You got Callahan out. You got everybody who walks into the lineup, just boom, is out. And now Providence is feeling it too.
Your next man up in Providence, now Brunet is injured, is Billy Sweezy, Jackson Edward, and Loke Johansson.
Oh my God.
What I think happens is Christian Wolanin's on an AHL PTO, which means he can only play 25 games in the AHL. And then they have to either let him go or sign him to a contract. I think he may end up getting an NHL contract. That's how desperate they are.
If they can't find someone via trade.
Right.
And I don't see, and as much as people want trades, it's harder and harder in the NHL to make deals now. Harder and harder and harder. One, the cap is higher, but that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is teams are like, I like my guy.
Yeah.
I like my guy. That's the new phrase in the NHL. I like my guy. Well,
Yeah.
what do I got to move him for? So like they are always like, if you move this guy, then you've got to fill this role. So it's like chess. So they're like, okay, the Bruins are different. They're in a different situation. They can still, or the Calgary Flames, or any of those teams that are not perennial Stanley Cup contenders. They can be like, oh, I can move this, move that. Sure, they can replace him with stuff. But the Bruins right now have so many injuries. It's going to be tough for them to find someone to come in. A team to willing to give them you could go out there and get prospects. You can go out there and get AHL guys. But to get a serviceable NHL defenseman right now, it's going to be tough.
Absolutely. And expensive.
Yep. Because they know the Bruins are in need. So you're going to charge them. But I think we both agree what the Bruins need. I wanted to end the show on something fun because we've been talking for over an hour and it's been great. But I want to end on something fun here because I've been seeing it all over the internet because Morgan Geekie has been arguably one of the best goal scorers in the NHL this year. I'm actually working on a video to come out later this week that's going to be talking about can he sustain this, and I'm going to go through all the stats and so on and so forth. But I'm seeing a lot here in Canada. Dom and I both live in Canada. Everything is about this season has been about the Olympics. We talk about who's making what squad, and I think Canada has more if-thens. Like, it's funny. The guys that get cut from Team Canada, and you can take offense to this all you want, would still make Team USA. Team USA, I think going into Four Nations, we thought was going to be a lot stronger, but with how bad Austin Matthews has been playing hockey-wise, and with Jack Hughes hurt, they've got some issues up front.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about Morgan Geekie. Do you think, and it's been made official, he is on official P-test watch. So whenever a player that's going to possibly play for Team Canada, who's on the outside looking in, and that's what Morgan Geekie is, they get put on P-tests. So they have to take drug tests, I believe, once a week, Dom? I can't remember.
Yeah, I believe it's
once a week. They get a random spot test, and they got to take a P. So right now for Team Canada, that would be Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, Tom Wilson, Matthew Schaefer, and now Bo Horvat, and now add one more name to the list because I think the last couple days it's been stronger and stronger, and I even heard it on Toronto radio yesterday. Morgan Geekie has been added to this list. I'm going to give you my opinion right off the bat, and then because I'm going to go quick. I don't think Morgan Geekie makes this team. Unfortunately, I think there's 3 spots available. I think Connor Bedard it was between Bedard and Celebrini. I think Bedard makes this team now. I think, unfortunately, and I don't think he should, I think Tom Wilson makes this team, and I'm still against Tom Wilson. I think it should be Macklin Celebrini. And then you try and find that third spot. But I think Connor Bedard is locked in a spot. He's just played way too well. He's been one of the best players in the NHL this year. In fact, if you look at the top in scoring, and they're all Canadians. But does Morgan Geekie have a chance to make this team?
I will say he has a chance for 2 reasons. He's been added to the list.
Yep.
And he'll have a chance depending on how hard Don Sweeney pushes for him. I think Don Sweeney's pushed for him. That's why he's on the list.
I agree.
But based on potential roster, the makeup of the team, what they need from their players, I don't think Morgan Geekie makes the roster.
Yeah, because I think Brad Marchand, who was kind of not on the outside looking in, but like a fringe guy, has played too well in Florida. And Don
Yeah,
Sweeney again knows him. He's on this team. In
yeah,
fact, if you go on Team Canada's Instagram, Seth Jarvis and Brad Marchand are all over it in this like new campaign they're doing. So that tells me that they just started last week. Seth Jarvis has played well enough, and so has Brad Marchand. There are fringe guys who are in and out of the lineup that are on this team. So forget that. And Morgan Geekie has to beat them to make this team. That's what I look at because Brad
yeah.
Marchand and Seth Jarvis can play anywhere in the lineup. And I
And
don't think Morgan
what else?
Geekie can play a bottom six role.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point I was going to make. Can he PK? Maybe a little bit, but at that level, I mean, this is an NHL level. This is a level above NHL
This
level.
is superstar level.
This is exactly. And
This is asking Connor McDavid to back check level.
yes. So no, I would love him to make the team, but I don't think um, I don't think there's anything above a slim chance.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because I do think you're taking Connor Bedard over Morgan Geekie. You're taking Macklin Celebrini over Morgan Geekie, and then there you go. Like that, it's easier to me. That's how I answer the question. You're
Yeah,
taking those two over him. So where and those two are offensive dynamos. And yes, I think Celebrini is very much better on his two-way game. In fact, he's San Jose. He's not arguably he is San Jose's best player. He's one of the
yeah,
best players in the West, and he is. I watch every highlight I can of the San Jose Sharks and the Chicago Blackhawks. I watch the Bruins games live, but after in the morning I go on YouTube and I watch Sportsnet app. If the Blackhawks or the Sharks play, I watch the replay of that game because those two are nuts.
Now, I will say this: it would just about any other roster, any other country, Morgan Geekie makes the team.
Yeah, Morgan Geekie makes Team USA, and that's not to say Team USA is bad. And that's not to say Canada's going to run away with this because it's anybody can face a hot goalie. Anybody can face like Team USA arguably has the best defenseman in Jacob Slavin, and Team Canada is cutting a guy like Matthew Schaefer, who I don't think will be there. That could make Team USA, but that's not. That's also looking at Canada's defense is very good, but like
Yeah,
I still say Team USA has the best defenseman, and then Team USA has better goaltending. Swayman would make Team Canada and would
yeah,
play. There you go. Swayman would play for Team Canada. Right now, our starting goalie is Jordan Bennington, and I don't care that he won in the Four Nations. That still scares the crap out of me. Logan Thompson will make this team, and maybe Blackwood is your third goalie because he's played that well in Colorado. But Team Canada has a goaltending issue. Team USA
oh
does
yeah,
not have a goaltending issue. Team USA has a strong defense. Team Canada has a strong defense. I just think Team Canada has better forwards than Team
yeah.
USA. That's all.
And name any other country, Geekie's making the roster.
And heck, if Russia's not there, Russia would have one of the best teams in this tournament.
Oh, oh yeah. Even World Juniors.
Yeah.
Even World Juniors.
But Geekie would make Team USA if he was a dual citizen, such as myself, who was born in the United States but grew up in Canada, just based on where my dad was playing hockey. Geekie makes Team USA without
Yeah,
a doubt.
absolutely. Absolutely. There's your fun topic.
Yeah, I just wanted to have fun with it. I just wanted to end it on a different note because we've been dissecting the Bruins, everything about the Bruins, and I appreciate Dom. For everybody, I'm going to be putting a link in the description down below for Dom's article that he just wrote with regards to goaltending. But I'll also put a link to his webpage, and I'll put a link to his Twitter. If you don't follow him there, you're missing out. He from time to time he makes jokes about me, but that's fine. I get it. But he knows Bruins prospects more than I will say anybody else that I know. No, I learn more about the game from Dom than most people that I talk to. So he is definitely a follow. But I appreciate everyone. I know this is a new format. I'm still going to be doing the videos. Like I said, I'm going to be doing one on Geekie later this week. But I wanted to get these podcasts out so we could have a bigger conversation, especially with regards to prospects. I am not a prospect guru. So I appreciate everybody. Click like and subscribe. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Dom, for being here. And we'll see you next time.